Alrighty, who's ready to talk about child labor? Yeah, no, we're talking about child labor because Project 2025 has a section in it that goes over the ways in which they want to redo how labor is operating in the United States. And there's some interesting takeaways here that I think we should consider right now. So the first one, if we go to, and we're skipping around in Project 2025 now, we are past the point of looking at it in chronological order. Now we are going to be going into whichever sections happen to have information that is important for us to cover. The reason I'm doing this is the way that Project 2025 is structured. It is such an information-dense document that is very, very hard to parse if you are not used to reading a lot of legalese and propaganda mixed in with policies, mixed in with a whole bunch of other shit. It's a 922-page document. There's a lot of shit to dig through in this doc. So we're going to pick and choose around where we need to as we can. Stop says the majority of reports covers of Jesse talking smack about Hogan and Republicans if you want to take a look at it. Fair enough. So the first one, before we get into ye old child labor, this one was interesting to me. Congress should encourage communal rest, by amending the Fair Labor Standards Act to require that workers be paid time and a half for hours worked on the Sabbath. That day would default to Sunday, except for employees whose sincere religious observance of the Sabbath at a different time. The obligation would transfer that period would transfer to that period instead. Houses of worship, to the limited extent which they may have FLSA covered employees, and employers legally required to operate around the clock, such as hospitals and first-time responders, would be exempt, as would workers otherwise exempt from overtime. So we think that people should be paid more for working on Sundays, unless you're somebody who's forced to work on Sundays. That's kind of weird to me. That's very strange to me. Also, they have a bit of here about teleworking. Congress should clarify that overtime for teleworkers applies only if the employee exceeds 10 hours of work in a specific day and the total hours for work exceed 40. The language there is kind of vague in that it could mean, like, if somebody works 10 hours a day, 5 days a week, they don't get overtime. But I don't think that's necessarily what they are trying to go with, per se. But it's just an interesting bit there that I wanted to go ahead and look here. Department of Labor should clarify that an employee given the option to telework need only record time if the quantity of work assigned for that day exceeds the usual amount of work that employee performs, so that the employee need not track every time he logs in and out, and the employer need not do so either. The usual amount of work that employee performs. That sounds vague as hell, and I don't know how you would enforce something like that. I don't know what that means. The usual amount of work an employee performs. As somebody who worked in several industries that have variable labor expectations, today you're coming in for 3 hours. Tomorrow you're coming in for 5 hours. Today you're working on the line. Tomorrow you're working in backstocking. Tomorrow you're working on the cashier. It sounds like it could mean anything at all. Like you would impart a policy that would just effectively get used in such a way that employees would get screwed, right? It's an effective way to try to destroy overtime pay, is what it looks like. Like if an employee performs the same amount of work, but works another hour or two, they don't get the overtime pay because they're not having to log in that, only if the amount of work they're having to do. It's very vague. Department of Labor should clarify that a home office is not subject to OSHA regulations, and that time to set up a home office is not compensable time or eligible for overtime calculations. Department of Labor should likewise clarify that reimbursement for home office expenses is not part of an employee's regular rate, even if those reimbursements are repetitive, such as for internet or cell phone services. It just seems like a bunch of ways to take money out of people who do telework, right? That's what it seems like to me. But let's go ahead and skip ahead to the part that I really wanted to cover here. It's just very, very awkward, right? It's this section on education and vocational training. The next administration should return to prior policy and implement an industry-recognized apprenticeship program separate from the registered apprenticeship program and explore how best to modernize, streamline, and eliminate duplication in the RAP. For roughly 80 years, the RAP, which requires conforming to government standards and includes federal funding, tax credits, and other federal resources, has dominated apprenticeship programs in the United States across the political spectrum. And they've noted that it was overly burdensome, had a ton of requirements that contributed to limiting them to legacy trades, failing to meet growing industry demands such as healthcare and technology. A 2017 study estimated that the number of occupations commonly filled through apprenticeships could nearly triple from 27 to 74, that the number of job openings filled through apprenticeships could expand eightfold, and that the occupations ripe for apprenticeships could offer 20% higher wages than traditional apprenticeship occupations. Now, here's the part that I actually agree with. I do think that some apprenticeship programs for allowing people to work in, say, healthcare would be good. Our healthcare industry is currently suffering under a lot of weight. But when you go a little bit further, you get to the hazard order regulation section of this otherwise good idea. Some young adults show an interest in inherently dangerous jobs. Current rules forbid many young people, even if their family is running the business, from working in such jobs. This results in worker shortages in dangerous fields and often discourages otherwise interested young workers from trying to do more dangerous jobs. With parental consent and proper training, certain young adults should be allowed to learn and work in more dangerous occupations. This would give a green light to training programs and build skills in teenagers who might want to work in these fields. The Department of Labor should amend its hazard order regulations to permit teenage workers access to work in regulated jobs with proper training and parental consent. Send the kids to the mines. We're at child labor again. That's where we're at. That's what this is. Because if somebody is 13 and they're like, "Daddy, I want to go work in this factory. That sounds cool." And you're staring at them going, "I don't know, Tommy. Maybe that's a bad idea. Maybe we shouldn't have you working in the factory like in, the 1900s. Yeah, children should not do dangerous jobs. We should keep them away from dangerous jobs." The party of protecting the children seems to really want child labor to come back in force here. I don't know how to feel about this, other than incredibly gross. But this is not new, right? This isn't something that just came out of nowhere when it comes to Republicans. They've been trying to push for a return to child labor in certain states for a while. In fact, actually, let me go ahead and just look up here. Republican child labor. That's all we have to do. We can look at that very, very quickly. And one of the first things that come up is an article from The Guardian. Republicans continue effort to erode U.S. child labor rules despite teen deaths. Well, we're not going to do the stupid thing where we only read the beginning of the article. We're actually going to look at the article itself and gather all the information from it we possibly can. So, let's go ahead and take a look at what we've got here. Child labor violations have been soaring in the United States, but efforts to render solutions through legislation have received little support. And Republicans at the state level continue pushing bills that would roll back current child labor protections. In the most recent fiscal year, the U.S. Department of Labor Wage and Hour Division reported 835 cases of child labor violations affecting 3,876 minors and 688 minors employed in violation of hazardous occupation, a 283% increase since 2015. Civil penalties against employers total just under 4.3 million. Deaths are pretty bad, much worse than losing a limb. Yeah, this is crazy to me. The fact that Project 2025 wants to rework hazard order regulations to allow kids to get into more and more dangerous areas of work when we have actual evidence that the trend of that happening has had a negative effect on people, on kids, is staggering to me. Now, this all comes at the tail end of the Project 2025 Mandate for Leadership document after they've talked about their reforms they want to do to the education system, where they talk about getting rid of the Department of Education completely, and also trying to push harder for private schools. So you get this situation where kids aren't able to afford going to school, so what do? Well, you get them into the labor force, because that's what kids are to Republicans. They are potential laborers. That's it. They're nothing more. It's slave work. They are potential workers and potential bodies who can provide a service to the country, ostensibly, but Republicans in reality. High Priestess Scarlet says Republicans protecting kids by killing them. Yep. At the state level, labor departments also saw sharp increases in child labor violations last year. A record number of employees were cited for child labor violations in Washington and in New York. And the state labor department reported a 68% increase in child labor violations in 2022. This year, harrowing child labor violations were reported by officials, including 3 teens who were killed on the job during summer. In June, 16-year-old William Hampton was killed in Lee Summit, Missouri, while working at a recycling park when he was pinned between a semi-truck and a trailer. Ouch! I know what that pain feels like, as I've been pinned between 2 vehicles before, and it is not fun. It's excruciating. That's a terrible fucking way to die. OSHA, the Federal Occupational Safety and Health Administration, is still investigating that incident. Later the same month, 16-year-old Michael Scholes was killed at a sawmill in Wisconsin while operating hazardous machinery that was illegal for them to operate at that age. The same employer, Florence Hardwoods, was found in violation of numerous other child labor laws and had to settle for a fine of $190,000 for the violations. In August, 16-year-old Dunvan Thomas Perez was killed while working at a poultry plant in Mississippi, a job occupation that was illegal for anyone under 18-year-olds to work due to hazardous conditions. But don't worry, it's great to look. There are kids who show an interest in these dangerous fields, and we should make exceptions for them. We should make exceptions for all of those situations where a kid is ignorant enough to think that they should work a very, very dangerous job. No, this is stupid. And every single person who's on board with this particular idea should probably have their ability to have kids either on a job site or in their own home revoked. As for the person who is actually responsible for this particular section of the document, is one Jonathan Berry. Now, I am very unfamiliar with this person outside of the fact that they are part of the Federalist Society. But let's go ahead and just take a peek here. Wikipedia's always got at least a little bit of interesting information. See, Francis Jonathan Berry. I feel like that might be the wrong person. Jonathan Berry. Federalist. Right. Jonathan Berry provides strategic counsel for litigants of intersectional law, politics, and public policy. He helps his clients navigate the emerging field of bureaucratic overlap in government, corporate America, and capital markets, especially in relating to environmental, social, and governance factors. He also litigates complex constitutional and administrative law issues and appeals, particularly in labor, employment, and benefits policy. His commentary has been published by the Wall Street Journal, New York Times, and First Things. In the government, he headed the regulatory office of the U.S. Department of Labor. So, this is not a man with no experience. This is the man whose experience is directly involved in these departments. And he just wants kids working. Of course, the children yearn for the mines. Why would they not? Obviously. It's insane to me that this can be in this document. This document that has ways to remove the human rights of trans people. This document that has ways to remove the rights of immigrants to the United States. This document that has so many horrible things in it, laced with so much mundanity. A return to child labor can be found in the fucking document. Of all things. If you would like to help with parsing Project 2025, you can go into my Discord. There's a section there that is dedicated. I'm getting very tired. I apologize. But there's a section there that is dedicated solely to parsing out this particular thick, with multiple C's, document. Now, while the administrators of Project 2025 have said that they are closing up shop for the actual document, that doesn't mean that they are actually closing up shop at all, because they are still trying to get all the policy workers in their places where they can enact what the Heritage Foundation wants them to do. Unfortunately, the only reason that so much is having to be stripped away from Project 2025 in terms of its public perception is because so many people are successfully talking about Project 2025. This is one of those few instances where information flowing has actually helped in regards to something here, right? I say that because it used to be a very common thing when I was an Alex Jones fan to get an email saying, "Oh, the elites have had to stop their plans because we knew what they were doing. We knew all along, and that's why they had to stop. Knowledge is power. All you have to do is know that it's happening. You don't have to do anything. Just know. Subscribe. Buy gold." Like, this is one of those few instances where enough people knowing what the fuck is up has actually, on its own, done a world of good. But it is not the same thing as saying that it's been a knockout win. There's still more to go through with Project 2025, and there is still more that the society that is trying to do this, that is trying to put all this shit forward, will be trying to do. Remember, the Heritage Foundation, the people behind this particular document, are Nixon-era level policy workers. They have been a think tank since before Reagan. Their goals and their jobs have been based on an administration that historically did a fuck ton of terrible shit, like fail during the AIDS crisis, or, I don't know, that fun part of the Nixon administration where they said they would illegalize weed because they could pin it on Mexicans. They could not be legally racist, but they could pin a bunch of drugs on a bunch of different races and then run with that. These people have been playing this game for a very long time. There is no such thing as defeating Project 2025 or Project 2025 actually closing up shop. There is only keeping the people that keeping the bureaucrats and politicians that the people who write these documents want in place. There's only keeping them out of the places they are trying to put them, and keeping them out of those places of power for as long as humanly possible. So if you want to stop Project 2025, aside from informing yourself and informing your friends, the best thing you can do is get up off your ass when it comes time to vote and go do that. But I digress. Let me know what y'all think in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you haven't already. And as always, everybody, insert any video tagline here. Hey, just wanted to give a quick thank you to all of my wonderful patrons who help keep me afloat and help keep this channel going. YouTube and Twitch are wonderful platforms, but at the end of the day, stability is not one of their strong suits. If you want to support my channel, then obviously Patreon is one of the best ways of doing that. Link is in the description. But I do want to personally thank everybody who has contributed to the channel. Those people would be Red Joker, Purple Poundini, Jemshin, Britzkrieg, Jupe the Malignant, Michael, Ravalern, Mabbity Babbity, Astral Frontier, Autumn and Angel, Nixie Chan, Mark Anthony, Victorian Alchemist, I'm not saying the last part of that, and you know that, Arcton Arclacier, Kiratorian, Dren Hadamata, Jordan M, John L, Lord Bleck, Smiling Game Master, and Fireshard. And everyone else who supports my channel and lets me do what I do full time. This is a dream job of mine that I never believed that I would be able to take full time, and with your help, I've been able to do it. So thank you so very much for that. Thank you for watching the video. I hope you all enjoy, and I hope you all are having a wonderful time. I will see you all in the next one, hopefully.